ladies and gentlemen. It's good to be back here at the India Food Forum once again after lunch. I think I'm going to make a quick announcement requesting everyone to get inside the main hall for the next panel discussion to begin as I invite the rest of my panelists. This panel is called Food Kingdom, Infusing Culture, Special Occasions, Events and Entertainment to add to the great taste of exclusivity. Really, how do you differentiate your existing restaurant or product, or for that matter, food offering from the rest? How do you take away from the idea of just selling the food or the resto-bar or the pub and then create a differentiated strategy to position the brand and redefine your clientele? Getting insights into infusing the entertainment, element of entertainment, events and culture into your brand, get your fan following beyond what it is at the moment to develop your taste for the place and obviously notch up its rankings among consumers. Let's get to understand what does it take to make a most happening place in town. That is truly the essence of the next panel, and with me is going to be the moderator of this event, Riyaaz Amlani, CEO and MD Impresario and President of NRAI. Also with us from Dunkin Donuts is Dave Amritesh, President and Chief Operations Officer. K.S. Narayanan, CEO Pan India Foods. We've got Niren Chaudhary, President Yum India. Rahul Singh, CEO of the Beer Café, and Uma Talreja, CMO Burger King. I request all of you to come onto the stage, and I also request many of the others who are extremely interested in this panel to please get here into the conference area for you to be able to get the best takeaways from this discussion. Okay. Let me once again introduce the subject of this discussion. This is a very exciting panel because it really tells you how to get to make the most happening place in town, and who else than having such a spectacular set of guests here. Food Kingdom, infusing culture, special occasions, events and entertainment to add to the great taste of exclusivity. That is the thought behind the panel, but truly, as I said, the focus is how do you make the place the most happening around town. So let's start with Riyaaz, who is really the expert moderator on the panel. Take us through how do you interpret the subject and what do you expect to get as a takeaway from this?
Okay. So, Impresario builds what we call handmade restaurants, and they tend to be cafes. And when I say cafes, they are spaces which are open for breakfast at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they kind of shape shift throughout the day as the customer evolves, and then the mood keeps changing a little bit. So we go from a breakfast vibe to a lunch vibe, and then we go into between lunch and dinner, coffee and snack, high tea, and then dinner, and then an after dinner drink. Now, that is how we make money, is we are able to sweat our asset as much as we can. In most restaurants, what tends to happen, and I'm only speaking about restaurants right here, as opposed to the panel, which is very, very interesting. We run, in a sense, we have to keep evolving throughout the day. So our music in breakfast is different, and lunch is slightly different. The lighting changes, the music changes, and in dinner, again, the music and the light keeps evolving and changing. Candles come out, and things keep evolving. So a large part of what we do is experiential driven. So the same space has to shapeshift into a different kind of an experience, but the space remains the same. Whereas the menu offering, again, keeps changing a little bit. We have slightly more. We have an all-day breakfast menu, but we also only serve breakfast for a particular time of day. And then we try and build communities around all the events that we do in the between times, which we call fillers, because if you're a lunch space, you get the lunch crowd that's coming in, and you get dinner space and you get the dinner crowd coming in. But the trick is, how do you bring people in during the times which are vacant? The 3 to 8 slot, for example.
Has it taken you many years to figure out that is something that needs to be evolved, changing the experience at different times of the day, and more importantly, for different kinds of customers?
Yeah, I think the place needs to shapeshift, because I think the purchase decision that somebody most closely associates is a mood with the purchase, with the F&B outlet. So let's say today I'm feeling like a quick snack, and I want it quick, and I want it fulfilling. I probably may not be a social or a saltwater cafe. They probably want to go to a McDonald's or a Burger King. And if they're feeling like a leisurely, nice ladies who want lunch, then perhaps they'll think about Saltwater Cafe because we offer salads and we offer, light food, which is also tasty. So that's perhaps when they're thinking about me. The question is, how do I get top of the mind when they are making a purchase decision as to which restaurant they want to go to? But that is really the trick.
Would you say that this was, did you think you had a head start? Because some would say, at least in the Bombay market, you were a first mover. And did that kind of help you understand, be flexible, and also take up the challenges with a little more ease in the market here?
Being a first mover, that means you get to make all the mistakes that other people can learn from, I suppose, in a sense. But the market has also changed considerably in the last 15 years. 15 years ago, things were completely different in India. There were only fine dining restaurants, and then there were UDPs. And if you wanted to go and hang out in a space, there was nothing really available to you to go besides five-star coffee shops.
Right.
And I think India has gone through maybe 40 years of evolution in the last 15 years as opposed to what's happened in the West or more evolved economies. So there's also been a lot of churn in concepts and ideas and brands. And I think we've undergoing 3 or 4 revolutions at the same time, all the time, I think. What do the other guys think about this?
Okay, let's throw up this whole idea to the rest of the panel and get a few thoughts on really, one, when someone's coming in with a restaurant or is planning one, because food is an ever, as you said, ever evolving story. What should they be looking at? What are the new ideas that are likely to fly in the future? So let me, Nirain, get your perspective on that. You've got massive chains. You've seen the experience of how the demographic dividend has rushed towards the idea of food, and we still remain quite experimental of late, I mean, the last 5-7 years. What do you think the idea of experiential food culture means for the food industry at the moment?
Sure. So my name is Nirain, and I have the privilege of leading a company that has brands like KFC, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell. And I think for those of you who are thinking about getting into the restaurant business and thinking about how to make that more relevant within the cultural context of the country, just a few thoughts. I think as a budding entrepreneur, or for any of us, I think our single biggest task is to build really strong, iconic brands which stand for something which is very distinctive. And you can do that only by making that brand relevant within the cultural context of the country, so that people can relate to it and get excited by it. So when I think of India in the context of our brands, there are 2 things that stand out for me. One is, as we all know, that India is a country of youth, more than 600 million people under the age of 30. And the second is the sheer diversity of the country from a cultural standpoint. So let me give you some examples on how we're building on that. So when I talk about youth, I think this youth mindset is about, if it's not shareable, it's not worth doing. That's the youth mindset. It's a 24/7 digital social mindset. And I find this staggering insight that if it's not shareable, then it's not worth doing. So therefore, for any brand, I think the onerous task is, how do I keep my brand buzzing and alive so that I really excite my consumers and they want to share what's going on? So we think of it in 2 dimensions. How do I create unique, shareable experiences inside the restaurant and also outside the restaurant? So inside the restaurant, a few examples on what we do with Pizza Hut. We have, Bollywood dance happening. So the restaurant is full, and suddenly the waiters will come and start dancing to Bollywood. So it's a disruptive experience. You don't expect that. You talk about it. Or you have a birthday wrap that happens there. Or say we have a kitchen tour in KFC, where we invite our customers to come inside and have a look at the store. So all of these are disruptive, non-standard experiences that consumers then get wowed by and then like to talk about. But also outside the store, how do you really drive that virality of experiences? So some examples, we recently developed a very good app called Wow app, which is a 3D augmented app. Very, very cool. In that, if you put a 50 rupee note or a 100 rupee note in front of your phone, it would tell you what you could buy in our value menu. And if you had a 1,000 rupee note, it would tell you that you're too damn rich, you may as well go out and treat your friends. So again, so how do you create that buzz around your brand, both inside the store, outside the store, and digital? Another favorite example of mine is in Taco Bell, where we dropped wallets in all the malls around the store. And you know, wallets in India is pretty cool. So the first thing any one of us would do is go and pick up the wallet. But here inside the wallet, you'll have Taco Bell currency instead of notes. So, you know, again, it's cool as people can relate to it, they want to talk about it, and they want to share it. So that's the first dimension of youth and how to create experiences that are shareable, because the youth says if it's not shareable, it's not worth doing. The second dimension, very quickly, on diversity. Staggering statistic, we have 330 million gods, as we know, and we have a god for every single occasion that we want to solve for. We have about 30 different languages, 1,600 different dialects. So therefore, you have to also in your food create a food with experience. And you can't just have a global concept that you can just mindlessly implement in India. And three quick examples. So KFC, for example, which is essentially a chicken concept, we do a lot of vegetarian food, which does quite well. On Pizza Hut, we're doing a pizza fusion concept with rice called Baritza, which has done well. And then on Taco Bell, we have developed bridge products like chicken tikka butter masala burrito, which is, you know, anathema to the Taco Bell lovers in the US. But we're adapting it for India because we want the brand to be relevant culturally, and we want our consumers to really talk about it. So just some examples on those two dimensions of culture.
And we'll talk about this. I think a lot of the people in the audience are wondering why did they keep this after the lunch, because they seem to be getting hungry way too soon, right through the panel. Let's introduce Uma, and let's talk about Burger King, just a stepping stone at the moment in India. So all these thoughts that are coming at you must have already been on the drawing board, in the sense that you need to deal with what can you do to make sure that you, one, introduce yourself differently in the country where players have been sitting and doing trial and error, learning from failures, etc.
I'm sure there's a lot for us to learn from people already here. And as a new brand, we're still getting to know the consumer. And the first challenge for us, of course, is that we are famous for certain products across the world. And what do we do when we come here? How do we innovate? How do we become relevant? And food is culture. So you can't really say how do you add culture to food, because food itself is culture, firstly, for us, especially in India. So the first stage for us, of course, has been developing a menu which still retains Burger King's values at the core of it, but how do we create more relevance, look at flavors, much like, you know, he spoke about the butter chicken experience. You know, how do we bring in interesting flavors which fuse well with your product category and create a unique experience for consumers. So that's been the first stage. The second is that, you know, it's important for us to be able to tell people as a new brand that what do we stand for. And for us, I mean, the brand has a lot of symbols, and for people to understand those symbols become very, very important. And the biggest symbol that Burger King, of course, has is the Whopper. And the Whopper across the world, in fact, is as big, if not a bigger brand than Burger King in terms if you go to measure its brand value. And it's known for certain attributes. And we wanted to introduce the burger, the Whopper, in a very interesting way. And our first thing was to go out where the consumers are, which is actually online, right? And if you see the amount of noise that there was before we launched, saying that we want the Whopper, we want the beef Whopper, there was a lot of noise around this. And that was the first thing that we did. We introduced the Whopper, saying that we have 3 types of Whoppers, so anyone can have the Whopper. You may not eat beef, but yes, you can have the Whopper in India. And we turned to a very innovative exercise, which is almost like an event by itself. So we created a pre-order for the Whopper on eBay. So it was the world first. It's the first time that anybody could order a burger online, and it was in India. So it made a lot of difference to consumers, saying that they were getting this experience first. You had a wow opening experience, and it is the Whopper, which is an experiential product, right? You can eat it like no one is watching. It has a lot of, wow connects to it, which are almost, you know, the messiness and everything else. So you can be yourself while eating the Whopper because of the way the product is. And
so
that seemed to work.
Experiment with both, not only just launching what is an established product, but also first getting people to know about it. If
know
they don't
about
already.
it was very important, because you know, a lot of people were expecting us to launch what we already have internationally, whereas our menu is made for India in India. So that was the biggest challenge, getting to know Burger King itself, firstly, and getting to know the Whopper. And what we did was very small things which actually sound almost like common sense. Reach out to people who already know us, people who've traveled, right? So you found them, obviously, usual suspect, Facebook. And we try to create an entire euphoria through social assets like that, you know, to create excitement for the Whopper. And the results were stupendous. I don't think that we could have had a better, you know, opening. The second thing is that there are a lot of things you want to be where the consumer is, and you want, like, you know, Viren said, that you want to create virality. And for a new brand, it's simple things like, for example, we have a Burger King crown, and it's been on every platform. So people have been coming, and we then launched a second crown. So we had a launch crown, which is the Burger King crown itself of the brand. But it's surprising the number of adults who come to our restaurant and wear that crown, go out on Instagram. They're mini-friendly community events for themselves. So we launched one for Christmas, which was a Christmas edition crown, which was there only for a certain amount of time. You could enter an Instagram contest to win and things like that. Those things have worked.
So it's interesting to see how it's not just about exactly what you feel inside the restaurant, but also around the brand's own activation at various platforms and various media. Let's get your perspective, Rahul Singh, on this, the beer cafe. How do you try and play with these multiple options? You know, at any points, any marketer has several balls in the air. Which one do you think has worked for beer cafe? What's the experience been in creating that experience? And more importantly, getting people to realize that your product is different from any other microbrewery that might be coming around, or another cafe that might be coming around offering beer.
Look, the product is not different at all. It's been there. It's the oldest recipe known to mankind. It was discovered or invented by a woman in the Sumer dynasty or the civilization. So beer has been there forever. Beer is a product which people feel happy about. It's an anti-stress buster. It's known to, you know, kindle joy and obviously happiness and camaraderie. We think beer is a social lubricant. So we take beer as a social lubricant, and that's the word we use in our own parlance. So it's a great product already. I don't produce that product. So I'm basically selling a pre-packaged product. So that task is not mine. The other thing about beer is that it's a product which is already very consistent. Somebody is working very hard, making it very consistent. Whatever was done in 1600, 1700 of a product like Budweiser is still the same. They don't change the flavor. So the only thing left to us to do is to actually create these touch points. So touch point for us is basically we want to be the neighborhood bar or your neighborhood place where you go. So we want to be like what Starbucks call themselves, the third place. So we want to be the right place, you know, where you can come and actually have and enjoy beers. So I think it's simple as a product, but the experience is where, you know, the difference comes in. The experience has to be that we want to sell more, we want to offer more beers than anybody else does. We want to have a freedom of choice. I don't know if you know this, that all the bars in India do exclusive deals with, you know, liquor companies. So if you go to a place, you'll only get A beer or a B beer or a C beer, and you end up getting what you don't want. In our case, you will never do that. So that's the USP of a beer cafe, where we want to offer, now we have 56 beers on our menu. Obviously, it's a huge task on a supply chain, and to make sure that we're always in stock, and it's a perishable product. It perishes very quickly. We also have a lot of draft beer that perishes even much more quicker. So the experience around beer is what we stand for. Having said that, because the product is so much fun, you know, you can create so much fun around the product, everything for us is very quirky. I also have a very distinct advantage. It's our own brand. It's an Indian brand. We don't have any global rub-off. We can do whatever we want to do. So when we go to an agency and talk to them, and so they basically get a level playing field. They literally can go and do what they want to do. So we've been very quirky in our communication marketing. As we open more stores, we will get more marketing dollars automatically, because, you know, it's something you have to earn from your own sales. So the whole experience is only going to get better. That's the way I look at it. I have to create experiences. People have to come, and like Niren said, people have to share that experience. Yeah. More people share experiences, more people come to know about it.
Yeah. Would it be fair to say, as you said, product is simple, would it be fair to say that today it's impossible to just promise good food? It has to be good food plus, or would you say that's not true?
It is absolutely true.
I mean, food and bev.
No, for sure. From my point of view, food experiences, first of all, there's so much choice out there. You know, we're spoiled for it. So anything that goes wrong with people, like you have now restaurant discovery sites like Zomato and food people like Times City and stuff. People are actually putting the experiences there, and I think Riyaaz probably gets a message every minute, literally on the Zomato part for your restaurants. It's out there, you cannot hide. So food has become very integral to your lifestyle.
Right.
It is a part of our lives. It's always been, but it's now people want to experience better food and more food and all kinds of foods, and they're actually putting everything online. So it's you can't hide from it. You have to always be an A+ on what you offer.
Okay. Another simple product, but clearly there's plenty of innovation there, is donuts. So Dave, let's talk about that. Again, you're looking at a broad spectrum of people who are interested in your product, from young to old. But how do you try and create how do you create experiences to, one, get people to come and try it out, and more importantly, then make them want more?
So our whole approach on this conversation was slightly different from thinking about an experience that the consumer wants. So typically, the way to approach an idea like this is to start with your product, build a brand around the product, and then add experiences that you think people will like, right? That is the sort of standard, so to say, operating technique. We've believed that there is an opportunity to build a whole brand around an idea, as opposed to doing things which are resultant from the narrative of the product itself. So, Example, donuts. The sort of logical way to go about building Dunkin' Donuts in India would have been to build a lot of attraction around youth, the younger youth, children, and so on and so forth. But we believe that the adult QSR marketplace in India offers a much larger opportunity. And today, donuts probably are about 1/3 of our overall sales. We have coffee and burgers and wraps, etc. And the whole thinking was that an idea which is rooted in cultural truth and which is relevant to the people of the target audience whom we are going after today, if we craft a brand around that, not just the product comes out of the idea, but also every intervention that you do, everything that you do to add to the experience. So our journey has been, it's a very recent journey, it's only 2.5-year-old journey. But as opposed to saying that start with the latent narrative of the product and add things to it, our whole idea has been to start with an idea and build every experience around it, including product. So therefore, the language that a donut has, or the language that the coffee has, and the language that the burger or the wrap has, must all be emergent from there, as must be the experience in the store.
How would you define this idea for the sake of your contemporaries or somebody who's trying to understand?
Our idea? So we took a view on the QSR marketplace, and we also saw, on the other hand, the more casual dining kind of market, the cafes and the casual dining places, and we felt that there's too much of a polarization. The QSRs are very simple, they're the evolved consumers are finding them somewhat infantile almost, and some of the other casual dining places might be too formal and sophisticated. So in the QSR occasion, we felt there's an opportunity to have an adult QSR brand, and that was the starting. So that is the definition of our marketplace, and then within that, sort of build we call it balm of irony. The brand the brand should apply a balm of irony on the consumers as a soothing sort of, as a relaxing, soothing sort of place. So the products and everything is born out of that idea.
Let's get your experience on how you interpret the idea of the confluence of experience and culture with respect to food in today's world.
Yeah, see, in our case, it's quite different in the sense that we operate a set of homegrown brands, and particularly most of Bombayites would be familiar with. We have Bombay Blue at one end, which is more targeted towards the mass end, to specialized cuisines into an Oriental cuisine. We've got Noodle Bar, to a spaghetti kitchen in Italian, to a copper chimney, which has been there for about 40 years on there. So one thing which we have seen is that, see, until and unless you are able to connect with the consumer and engage with the consumer, that's what brings lasting loyalty and brings him or her back into the fold. So one thing which we have seen is that I think over the last few years, particularly with so many of the so-called foodies coming up, yeah, each and everyone is an expert in food, and rightfully so. I mean, today in a group of 3 people, you ask them, you'll get 30 opinions on food, because it's something which is very integral to our culture. People are very close to it, and there are opinions just keep flowing out. So what we have really found, and now with these master chefs, etc., coming in a big way, that's something is a big trend which is really catching on. What we have really seen is that the moment you start co-creating the product with the consumer, and that's when the whole game changes. So, and that is something which we have tried to do it differently. Just to share an example, in Noodle Bar, we have something called a Toss It Up, which gives very clearly there is a different set of noodles, there's a different set of toppings, a different set of sauces. So you bring the consumer along, so the guy comes in, you sort of choose, I want this, I want that. So you sort of, when you start co-creating the whole thing, then the whole experience changes. The consumer feels that he or she has sort of designed the product, which a master chef behind the kitchen does it and delivers it to you. So that's something which we found very interesting, something which is sustainable, and as we've seen, we've been doing it now for the last couple of years. It's our #1 selling SKU as well. So that's similarly, take this whole thing on into Bombay Blue. The audience is very different. It's a far younger audience. It's a multi-cuisine thing. So there again, we did a lot of co-creation, but these are consumers who are more savvy, like Niren said, out of the restaurant, how do you end up doing it? So these are guys who are savvy with technology, with your Facebook, your social media, etc., etc. So then you run contests along with that, saying that, okay, you create the product, you take snaps of it, you put it on Facebook, you put it on social media, and then then trying to get that whole thing viral and involved. So that's something which we have tried to build more on, and trying to see how we can take it to the next, the experience to the next level.
Let me ask a fundamental question, Riyaaz, and I'd like you to take that forward as well, perhaps even ask a question or two after that, which is that what are the tenets of the experience of culture around food, I mean, or the culture of food in one way? Is it partly location? It's part of, you know, how much can you play with fusion cuisines? Is it about the kind of educated services that are being offered, including having educated staff who can tell people what to do, and that could become a part of an experience? How do you look at the idea of experience? You know, it's not necessarily having to have, let's say, while some may look at a song and a dance, the others may look at something else. So how do you define, what do you pick, and how integral is it to marry the right concept with the right kind of theme?
You know what, they were saying that you build a central thought and then you build everything around that. I think it's very important for your brand to have a very distinct and original personality. It is right now, you know, everybody gets a little insight that, oh no, okay, if it's shareable, if it's not worth doing if it's not shareable. But that's operating at a very basic level of the brand. You know, I mean, everybody knows that. Everybody knows the more people will tweet, the more you'll get. But I think there's a certain level of street cred that a brand has to start developing. Sometimes you can actually see through a veneer which is there in the brand. And I think that is something that needs to be avoided. The brand promise, the brand personality has to be permeated in everything the brand does. It cannot be, oh, I'm talking about, you know, love and harmony and peace, and I'm giving you plastic chairs and plastic tables to sit on, which does not even feel organic or feel right. So I think that, and that goes down into the food, it goes down into the way the food is served, what the food is served upon, what kind of music is playing. It's what your waiters are saying, what your managers are saying. It's everything, and it cannot just be, oh, this is my brand, but I'm going to do that innovation. It has to be 360, I feel.
So I think just by way of some pragmatic sort of thoughts for people who are thinking of doing this, I think both Riyaaz and Dev totally agree with them that obviously you need to have a very central, differentiated thought for who you are and what value you're adding to the consumer's life, and that's the brand. But just three distinct thoughts in the context of culture. I talked about youth and diversity. Therefore, just three thoughts. One is make sure that it's shareable. I think it's a good filter. I know it's somewhat basic, but I think it's a powerful filter to think about experiences. I think make sure that it is relevant for your consumers in terms of the culture in which you operate. And there's also an important third dimension, which is about show that you care. Show to your consumers that you're a brand that really cares. And I think this third dimension is, I think, very important because of the culture in which we operate in India, the challenges, socioeconomic challenges that we have. And I think it is one dimension that speaks in a massive way to the young consumer. They gravitate towards brands that actually show that they care. So some examples would be that in KFC we have special stores where the deaf employees are in majority and the hearing employees are in minority to show that we care. We recently launched the first Braille menu in Taco Bell so that our brands are seen as being totally inclusive for all kinds of customers. And I think this dimension of showing that you care, making sure that your experiences are shareable, and your food is relevant are three important cornerstones, I believe, in ensuring good way to think around, how do I make my brand more successful in the cultural context in which I operate.
So it's interesting that you all probably agree that the idea of philosophy is very much a part of the experience rather than that just being something that's written in a mission statement, so to speak. It needs to be an extension of your brand and something that the consumers feel as well. What is it that drives people beyond, once they've accepted your philosophy, how do you keep that customer coming back?
So in the restaurant business, the restaurant brand is fundamentally very different from a packaged foods brand. It's also in some ways different from a single brand, single product retail brand. Food service industry is compared to be similar, considered similar to the single brand retail industry in some ways. But if you talk about the philosophical idea that leads to building the brand and how to keep it alive and keep customers coming back, in the restaurant industry, in the restaurant brands, the situation is far more complex. Packaged foods are very easy to understand. You have a brand philosophy expressed strongly in packaging, product, benefits, emotional benefits, and advertising. In retail, to some extent, store, right? But the frequency in a restaurant brand is significantly higher than most of the retail establishments, right? So you could go to a coffee shop in the US, in Dunkin Donuts, there are consumers who go 800 times a year, right? And these are 10% of your consumer base, a very large number of consumers. Even in a functional food place, like in a idli dosa place in India, there are consumers who could go to a place 500, 600 times. So the consistency and the it must come naturally to the brand. You can't put it on. You can't sometimes say that I will sing a birthday song and some days you don't sing a birthday song. It's a restaurant. If a brand is built from an idea, it must truly be their idea. It shouldn't be something that they craft because consumers want it. It shouldn't be something which is very current, so we do it. So the trick to keeping consumers coming back is to be true to your own idea, to understand it. Don't just SOPize it and think that it's a training thing which we must do because the other guys do it very well. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I think a good test of it is if you are doing many things which others don't do at all. If there are 5, 6 things which are really important to you, which nobody else really bothers about, it means that perhaps you have an idea which is different, and perhaps you might be able to do it from your heart in a convincing way, and therefore people, so the key touch points must be identified, and then it must be easy, it must be seamless. You shouldn't be sweating to sort of make it happen. Okay.
Do you want to add to that, Riyaaz? How important is consistency as a centerpiece of restaurant philosophies today? You have a mic there? Yeah.
Consistently bad or consistently good? No. Well, what I would like to talk about a little bit, and I want to ask Dave about this, is, aside from KS and I, four of you all represent some very iconic, very deeply ingrained lifestyle decision. Okay, there's a particular image about a cop and a donut, right? There's a particular image about reaching out for a burger. And there's a particular image about the pizza that comes home and the pizza that is eaten in the restaurant, and how that has become, like, for example, pizza has become so closely associated with New York, for example. And when somebody is buying a Pizza Hut burger, they're also buying a piece of a New York. So I would like to know about, and in beer also is the same thing. How do you go about creating that deep ingrainment, which is so much more deeper than just creating a casual event, where you make it as a part of your personality. You actually make the customer adopt this as a lifestyle, as a thought, and as a choice that I will wake up in the morning, I will go get my coffee and I'll get my donut. And then I will go get a burger on the run, and then I will spend time with my family eating slices of pizza, and then go have beer after that. How
So
does
we'll
that
get
become
everyone to
your day?
answer this for you. Let's start, Dave, and then we'll pass it to Uma and so on.
I think the subject of rituals and symbols is a highly fascinating and deep subject, generally in branding, but especially in the context of restaurants and QSR brands. There are a lot of examples, and that's why it's worthy of a discussion on this panel. I think if you look at the definition of what a great ritual is, it has to be highly stylized. If your ritual is not stylized, and if it's something which doesn't stand out, then it probably doesn't even have a chance of becoming, something long term. Secondly, I think it's interesting that we say restaurant industry should have a lot of SOPs. It's interesting that probably the strongest rituals are built out of doing things in a prescribed order. Like if you look at a religious ceremony in any part of the world, there's a prescribed order to it. It's highly stylized. It has meanings which not everybody can understand. And if you can get all these things going consistently, and if they're born out of your philosophy, okay, then chances are that consumers might look at that symbol or that ritual and say, wow, this is the carrier of what the brand is all about. And there are so many examples of that. The Boston Cop is really that. It's actually just a symbol of the realness of Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts takes its Boston Cop, everyday person image very seriously, because it allows them to show the brand as an every person's brand, as opposed to a sophisticated brand where you take your external self. So I think understanding who you are, creating certain symbols and rituals around them is probably a great way to bring your philosophy alive and show it very easily to consumers.
Uma?
So it's a very difficult question actually, Riyaaz, because it doesn't, one is to create like a story which could resonate very true because of certain trends, because of certain things that you see around you. It's a very difficult thing to do for a brand. So for example, if I had to go back and look at Burger King, and I know that there's one powerful symbol, right, which anyone across the world will recognize, and it's the Whopper. But the Whopper has to finally mean certain value, to the customer. It has to mean more than a big burger. It has to mean more than the value for money that a big burger brings to you. And that's where, what you want is to break barriers of certain human beliefs, certain behaviors, and which take you a little forward. So, we are launching a new positioning globally, for example. It's called Be Your Way. And that's really what the brand then needs to do to make sure that everybody feels like that. So when you come to Burger King, you don't need to pretend, right? You can be yourself. It's not about glamorous celebrities alone, but even a glamorous celebrity can be who they want to be at a Burger King. And therefore, the symbol about eating a burger, and you eat it without, a care. So if you are on a date, it's probably the last thing that you would order because you're going to have a mess on your hands. But that's what the brand is actually trying to break the notion of, saying that it's okay to have a mess on your hands and just be yourself. And that's how you go on creating it. But it needs a larger insight in terms of how customers can break those beliefs and barriers which take them forward in life, right? And it makes life more enjoyable. It makes life more meaningful for them. And they're able to enjoy small occasions much better because of what they do. I'll also add just one point. I think one of the things that probably as large brands we miss out on is relationship building with the consumer, right? And we are the ones who are enabled with a lot of data which can tell us what people really like, what they're looking for. You might have consumers which keep coming back and repeatedly having the same product. And here's a brilliant example of what you can do to actually recognize this relationship that person has with that item on your menu. And now what can you do, to bring newness to that item for that person, because there's going to be fatigue maybe at some point in time. And how you convert that, therefore, into a story for this one individual, right? And of course, I mean, when you segment, there'll be many such. But it's very important to go back and look inside your data to see what is it that you can find which can become a larger consumer story for the brand. So,
but how important is the close association of the burger with an American lifestyle and the aspiration of an Indian consumer for that American lifestyle. Do you think that you'll ever, in some way, move away from that link?
So I'm not sure whether that is what one wants to do, honestly, because, eventually we all form a very small segment of eating out today. And the only way that we can expand that market is being more and more relevant to the Indian consumer. And how is an American brand, by staying American, become relevant to the Indian consumer? That's not what we're going to be able to manage to, in order to expand this category and make it bigger. It's more important to be closer to the Indian consumer, understand what they want, but keep the aspiration going. And that's when you will actually be able to expand this category and, create better penetration for burgers, pizzas, and what have you.
For example, I feel that McDonald's today, I'm sorry to talk about McDonald's today, but it's completely viewed differently in the West, and it's viewed completely differently here. For here, it is a family outing. I'm taking you, my entire family, out to a fine dining experience. I'm giving them an American, my uncle who lives next door, his brother is living in the States and they have this lifestyle, and I'm now giving this lifestyle to the kids. I mean, we're not as relevant as, let's say, a vada pav or a pav bhaji culturally to something. And also, burger is slightly more foreign to a guy who's grown up eating. Like, one of the biggest problems we restaurateurs face is the guy who's selling my $2,000 bottle of wine had absolutely no appreciation for it. It's the same thing with let's say, you going to a burger. He's actually taking a leap in a certain sense. But there's certain...
You're very right, but that's exactly what a brand like McDonald's or us would want to do to create more customers for us as well, because no one wants to come to us to eat what they eat at home. But nobody really wants to eat a hardcore American product in that many numbers either, which is why you see so much menu innovation which is on in the QSR market today, because they're trying to get the pulse of the customer in terms of taste, in terms of preferences, and yet balance it with a certain amount of discovery, which creates that newness, right? So you keep coming back because there's a new experience, but it's still familiar in a certain manner.
So would you say innovation is a butter chicken burger? Would that be innovation?
I don't want to answer that.
Thought as much. You'd either put her in this spot or let her leak out her strategy. You don't know which
All right,
one.
so I think it's a very tough question, and I think our take is that we exist to create shareholder value, which is through building a big brand. And I think in a country like India, the brand has to be mainstream. It has to be a mainstream brand. And therefore, our mindset is, it has to be, our competition is street food. So we want consumers who would eat at street food as inexpensively to come into our stores and have a global experience. In fact, our sort of mental picture is global brand, Indian heart. And I think that to answer your question, the way to think about it is that for everything that we do, there is a core intrinsic brand strength. So as an example, KFC globally, the strength is of craveable taste. But then in India, there needs to be a cultural insight, a category insight, and then a brand insight for you to be able to create something meaningful for the consumer. So just a quick example. One cultural insight would be that Indians have, fire inside them, aspiration to really do something big because we're a young country. Category insight is that, not all of our food in branded retail food is flavorful. And the brand insight is, well, KFC is known for its chicken, but sometimes perhaps the chicken is bland. So how about this new product with this Bhoot Jolakia spices from Assam, and you have something gangbusterly, flavorful, not expensive, spicy, and very, very relevant to the Indian consumer. So it comes from the cultural insight, category insight, and then something that's relevant for your brand. And then you have a product called Flaming Crunch, and then you advertise that, and consumers get it and start responding to it. So I think whatever we do comes from a position of strength of what the brand is globally, but has to have relevance within the context of the culture that is India.
Yeah. I think there's no doubt about that, but exactly. I wanted to ask this question to Rahul to say that, yes, they do have a challenge of coming up with something that has a little Indian flavor or Indian, an Indianness to it to make sure that they go beyond their existing global large corporations. But how does it work for a company that's starting as an Indian brand when you don't have that power to ride on? So what challenges come there? As Riyaaz's question was, How do you
As
take
an
that?
entrepreneur, as an enterprise?
I would still like him to finish answering my question
Okay,
a
I
little
was
bit.
awaiting that.
Yeah. So you're trying to get largely, puritanical Indian population to kind of meet over beer
Sure.
and shift socializing from a cup of coffee or chai
Sure.
to beer.
Sure.
And how's that working out for you?
So that's what our mission is, basically. What probably coffee guys did in '96 when the first coffee shop was set up was to kind of break that myth around chai. Okay? And that's what I want to do. Basically, the idea here is to get people off the liquor or wean them away from the hard liquor and the coffee. Somebody's supporting me there right now.
Well, you'll have to fight that.
Okay. So the idea here is to wean people away from, I'm not saying bad things, but wean them away from liquor and coffee and get beer in the lifestyle. The beer has had
Beer
a
is a-
bad
beer is a good
start.
thing.
No, I'll
Beer is
tell
a good
you.
thing.
So very relevantly,
guy.
beer has had a very bad start. Beer is like a date. Okay. So your first date usually goes wrong. So in our time, I would say we are on the better side of the 30s and 40s. So what happened with beer was we were 16 or 17 and we would just go to a place, buy a bottle of beer, whatever, the most lowest common denominator beer would be available, and, hide and drink in a car or somewhere, with a friend. That's not how you have beer. And so the whole experience of beer at the age of 16, 17 has been wrong. That experience is still in our mind that it doesn't taste good. Try and drink a Coke, which is not cold, and it's not going to taste. Any aerated beverage, beer is an aerated beverage, it's a carbonated beverage, has to be cold. The other thing around it is you have to have it in a glass. Don't have beer in a bottle. So things are changing. My son, 16 today, will experience the best way he's ever had beer. So that's the cultural change. He knows more about beers than I would have had known, in my times. I just knew beer meant I'm going to have a good time, let's have a beer. But it was a wrong beer, it was the wrong date. My first kiss, my first beer was wrong. Now I'm a very good kisser. So that's where I'm coming from. So I'm relevantly in that cultural. So that's where
No one knows more about beer than Rahul, I have to say. It is true. Absolutely. Okay, so how do you shift between, let's say, a noodle bar and a spaghetti kitchen? You're serving the same thing, but one is with a Chinese sauce and one is with aglio olio. And then take that suddenly into a place like Bombay Blue, which is like you're taking street food and funking it up and trying to provide an experience around that. Do you get like a little schizo sometimes handling all this?
Yeah, certainly it does, because handling multiple brands, these issues are there. But I think for us, being not a QSR but being more in the formal dining space, our entire business, if you look at it, is in terms of food is just one part. I would say if it's a three-legged stool, food is just one part of it. There is a big element of what we call hospitality. And the third element, what I call retail, the location, where you are, etc. It's the combination of these three that sums up the entire experience of food in an outlet like ours. So that being the case, then how do you then take it to the next level, and how do you see to it that there is certain consistency in the experience that you have across the whole thing? That is number one. The other big challenge that we face is that in our case, again, it's a if I look at, say, a pure QSR or a coffee shop sort of a thing, it's a lot of signs. It's more of an assembly line, etc., which is there at the storefront. A lot of it happens behind the development part of it. In our case, each and every moment, each and every interaction with the consumer is a combination of art, craft, and science. It is, you need a chef at the store to deliver a good eating experience, because end of the day, the customer first eats with his eyes and his nose before he eats with his mouth. And that being the case, that whole combination, you have to get it right. And that's a challenge which we keep facing all the time. And so moving from one brand to the other, trying to remain core to what that brand stands for, and trying to do it, I mean, that keeps us awake all night, and I guess keeps our adrenaline pumping.
I think it's a very interesting point that you made, and drew a pretty clear line between QSR, which is a quick service restaurant where everything is idiot-proof and all the hard work is done behind the scenes, and then in the shop front it's just very quickly assembled together by someone who has minimal skills to offer it out. And in a cafe or in a restaurant, it's not about.
No.
It's about using fresh ingredients and.
Each dish is crafted for the individual's liking. So, I mean, you get customers who come in and ask for sometimes the weirdest of things. It could even be getting a Jain chicken, but so be it. You need to do it and deliver that. And because we are, end of the day, we are in the business of satisfying the customer, and we want him or her to come back. So that's where it is.
Yeah.
So you're the only restaurant offering Jain chicken. Is that what you said?
I think it's very interesting how the lines have slowly started to blur between the restaurant and the quick service spaces. I think the quick service spaces are eventually trying to become more experientially heavy. And I think restaurants which were experientially heavy are now trying to get more product stronger. And I think this is quite interesting, no? The QSR and the restaurant thing merging together.
Merging together. True.
Good. You want to make a point?
Yeah, two quick comments. One is the trend called fast casual has already happened all around the world.
Correct.
Right? So it's not something new anywhere else. So chances are that might happen, and the beginning of that is starting to happen already. So that's probably not anything new. Just a quick word on innovation. I think we talked about, you raised a very interesting point about how brands stand for something else globally. And when they do something which is very desi or very Indian, they seem to be eroding their brand value. I think you will see, and the response to that is also valid, that that's what the consumer wants, and India has a different market and all of that. I believe very strongly in innovation, and especially product innovation, especially in the QSR category. I think it's going to evolve beyond this conversation. I think the QSR industry or brands will be pushed more and more to do innovation which is relevant to the Indian consumer, yet retain the global identity and keep it intact, and if not, strengthen it. I don't think we haven't seen too many examples of that kind of innovation in our industry insofar. There are a few examples, but I can see it becoming the norm rather than the oddity and going forward.
Okay.
Well, I have to say, I'm a big fan of how Dunkin has entered into the country. Absolutely.
Okay, let's get some questions from the audience. Just raise your hand and we'll ask a mic to drive up there.
Hello. Good afternoon, panel. I just wanted to know that you all have been talking about the brand, bringing the consumer. What do you feel will help hook a customer better? Will it be the ATL-based activities where you go for digital media, the newspaper ad, the radios, and other electronic medias, or the BTL activities, the so-called Facebooks, the Twitters? They would be more influential in bringing the customer and retaining the customer.
Who wants to take that?
Okay, restaurants can't afford above the line too much. So we save it for the big boys. Yeah.
So I think it'll evolve and change dramatically. I think currently, and the old formula is more around television advertising and brands talking to consumers. And I think in a growing skeptical world, people don't believe what you say beyond a point, because everyone expects you to tom-tom about how good you are. And I think it comes down to trust. I don't think there's anything more trustworthy than, say, a recommendation of a friend or somebody who tells you how good something is. And therefore, that type of credible endorsement, I think, is going to become a pillar of how you want to drive communication for your brands. And that happens through the digital and the social space. So right now, I think most of our brands continue to be very dominant and dependent on the ATL old classic formula. But I think over the next few years, I think it's going to switch completely as consumers get tired of too much of retail bombarding messages and look for something that is more authentic and more trustworthy, digital and social.
Okay, some more questions? Yeah, just pass the mic there.
We spoke about two different concepts. One about getting these chains which are globally quite strong and getting them into India. And they have a very strong brand heritage. They've got the whole works of the brand, and you just need to customize to the Indian tradition and localize it. If I just keep that aside, there was a small discussion which was around of creating QSRs or concepts of dining or having a good experience of Indian localized brands which have been created. And very simple for the masses when you were college thing, the Jai sandwich was a big concept, the NM Vada Pav wala was the concept. So today who have really grown that concept, they remember those joints as the big things. Is there any message that for somebody who's in this group wanting to start a Indian startup who doesn't have the advantage of that big money or the P money to come in and set up a chain, what would be the recommendation and the advice from this elite group of people? What should be his go and no-go in terms of evaluating as a concept of getting into this kind of industry or a QSR concept? Okay. And I'm not talking about a restaurant, because restaurants are a completely different thing. And if you really need to go on the go, convenience, value for money kind of an experience, cost kind of a stuff.
Okay, do you want to take that? No, I think you want to make my point there, right there.
See, in the
in
the F&B industry, what I think one needs to be careful about is it should not just be a novelty. That's something which will come and go in a short span of time. You need to see something which is sustainable over a longer period of time, and you can build on top of that. And to ensure that this real sustainability happens, it should be a concept which is really integral to whatever your core consumer group is going to be. And that becomes the crucial thing. What you end up seeing is that, yes, a lot of novelty factor coming in, something starting up, and then you're not able to maintain that consistency going forward, and that's where the whole thing falls apart and it collapses. So I think that really is the crucial thing. I mean, you've seen a lot of Indian F&B brands, whether it's in the restaurant space or even in, say, food, etc., which is there, which are really coming up, and that's something they stick to the core, consistently continue to build on it. I mean, it could be simple things like whether it could be in beverages, just a mango drink, to biscuits, to any category that you take, or even in restaurants. Simple example, for instance, in the restaurant space, I have, say, a copper chimney, which has been serving the same food for 40 years. But there is something which a consumer then he gets attracted to, that goes back to it, because yes, the food can't go wrong there, and that's something which is soul food, home food, whatever you may end up calling it. So I think that's something which is really critical as far as F&B is concerned.
Yeah, sure.
I'd just like to add, in fact, I think it's a very good opportunity for an Indian startup to identify certain latent needs which are there in the consumer segments that you can see. And I came across a very good example recently. There's a brand, Indian QSR, called Box 8. Right? So it's like the bento box, essentially. But you know there's a segment of people who don't necessarily go out for lunch to a food court or etc., but they want something delivered. And delivery is such a big growing trend in our market, where people who are time pressed or people want to eat on the go. And I don't think it's so much therefore about what they put into the box, but yes, they give you options, but they've recognized that need that a consumer segment has, and then they've exploited that. And Indian startups are in a very good space, you know, to identify such needs, because they have their feet on the ground in the market already. They're not governed by an existing proposition, but they can find that, and then they can actually expand on those kind of concepts.
So just a few thoughts. I think as you're thinking of a new concept, first to really understand the category and the market and see, is there some unmet need or a box that has not been occupied or served by a particular concept. I think that's really critical, and that's very, very hard. But if you can get that germ of an idea which is differentiated and unique, then two things to think about. One is, what will be my consumer value proposition? And second is, do I have a business model? So the consumer value proposition is, for that unmet need, what do I offer functionally and emotionally to the consumer that is not being offered right now? And then business model, can I sell enough volumes of what I have in mind at the appropriate cost so I can make money at a store level? I think if you have a fairly good idea of those two dimensions in the context of an unmet need, I think higher chances that you will actually succeed.
Yeah, do you want to add there, Rahul?
I just want to add something on a personal note there. If you are earning a salary, I don't know, are you a salaried person? Dump it. Okay? Forget the salary, dump your job. जो भूख आएगी ना, उससे अपने आप ही you'll be able to take out ideas. Until the time you get a salary. I was a salaried guy, a professional 9 to 5, corporate, the whole shit. you have to dump it, you have to struggle, you have to beat yourself down, you have to come down to all the, just get off your coat, get off your ties, and you'll rock. I swear you'll rock. Just take it out from inside. अपने आप सारी चीज़ आ जाएंगे आपको.
Well, that's certainly heartfelt, I can say that's for sure. We have time for one final question.
My question was for, my name is Saurabh, my question was for Dev. So when Dunkin' Donuts came around, we all had this notion that it's going to be a donut-heavy brand, something on the lines of mad over donut. But like you said, donuts is only 1/3 in the entire category. There's burgers and coffee. Did you all have to make a constant effort or this educating the consumer to change their perception that Dunkin' Donut is not only about donuts?
So as far as the consumers who are really familiar with the Dunkin' Donuts brand, who have been to New England or who have been to Dunkin' Donuts in the US, I think already the informed consumers knew that Dunkin' Donuts is not really about donuts only. Because even in the US, donuts probably form even lesser percentage of Dunkin' Donuts sale than they do in India, maybe about 10 or 15%. Coffee really is a big part, and breakfast sandwiches are. So for the consumers who really knew what Dunkin' Donuts is, I think there wasn't much of a challenge. They were waiting to watch how will a primarily breakfast brand, in the US it's a breakfast ritual brand, how is that going to transform itself and play in the Indian marketplace? So already I think the analysts and the informed consumers knew that we have to do something different to make Dunkin' Donuts work in India. As far as the consumer, the normal consumer who hadn't seen Dunkin' in the US, maybe some of them probably did think that it is mainly a donuts brand. And I think they were pretty happy to see a refreshing new QSR brand. I think most people, when they went to Dunkin' Donuts, said, yeah, this is not a QSR brand for children or for first-time QSR consumers. This is a brand for more evolved, slightly consumer, but still within the QSR space. So I think we hit a sweet spot with what we did, and we didn't have much of a challenge. People didn't reject us saying, hey, I thought you were supposed to have only donuts. Why do you have coffee? I don't like you. Nobody said that. They were, I think, far more accepting of what we did.
Great. Well, with that, we're going to conclude this panel. Riyaaz, do you want to say anything in conclusion?
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks to the panel and to all of you here. And thank you very much for being a great questioning audience. With that, we're going to wrap this up and open up the stage for the next masterclass to come through. Thanks very much.